22-year-old Elizabeth Villarroel, a housekeeper working for an upper-middle-class Caracas family, has been given a new duty by her employer. She now has to wait in line for up to 5 hours, 6 days a week, at the supermarket to buy food items and basic staples for the household she works for.
My boss gives me the list of things to buy. I get in the line in the afternoon and sometimes I have to wait in another line later in the day, depending on what products arrive. I found this little unfair. All humans are supposed to be equal, but I have to do this and they don't, just because they were fortunate.
The use of coleras, as they are called here, is how wealthier Venezuelans avoid lines that can last hours. But with fuel prices plunging and inflation soaring, paying people to stand in lines could be just one of the steps people will take to cope with a troubled economy.
Be complacent and accepting a fair amount of insanity as being okay. And that made me think about my personality. I mean, I know that it shouldn't be happening and that it's not okay. But the fact is that I live in an insane dysfunctional country where basic products such as milk, coffee, flour, and toilet paper are scarce to the point that people make insane long lines and even end up fighting and looting to get those goods. I live in a country with an insane dysfunctional economy where there's nothing cheaper than gasoline, where people have gotten rich making money by trafficking it and other subsidized goods, where the police and National Guards cannot control the rampant crime that took the life of more than 24,000 during 2013 only, where impunity is the law, where prisoners control the jails and live with a comfort that honest working people outside cannot have, where at least half the population ratifies the disaster by voting in favor of the 15-year-long revolution, where you have to drive like a drunk because of the craters in the roads, where law does not apply to people who can afford to pay off judges, where all TV stations won't report to avoid conflicts with the government.
Maduro was the National Assembly said that he was no longer the president, and the National Assembly should have the power to do that, to say that Maduro is not president, because he abandoned the charge, because normally every 5th of January the president goes to the National Assembly and tells the people what he did all year, and he didn't do it, and he was absent for 3 more days because he was in, I don't know, a Central American country where another leftist president was being elected. So basically, Maduro was not president, but he doesn't give a fuck, and we're basically living in a dictatorship. Media doesn't cover that either. National media doesn't cover that either. Just because they are afraid, and they should.
It's become a daily sight in Caracas. Long lines of people snaking throughout the city as they wait hours for food. Some with nothing to show for it.
From 4 o'clock in the morning, I've been standing here in line. I have the number 900. 900. This is my ID card. I'm Venezuelan. There is no food. There is nothing.
Every Venezuelan is assigned 2 shopping days a week based on their state ID number. But that's no guarantee. Every Venezuelan is assigned 2 shopping days a week based on their state ID number. State ID number.
With no rain, the water level is critically low at the Yuri hydroelectric dam that normally provides about 60% of the nation's power demand. But without enough water to run it at full capacity, the government is shutting off electricity for hours every day. Inflation is about 700%. That's the highest rate in the world. All this is due to the poor decision-making of an extremist government that's been led by Hugo Chavez and his successor, Nicolás Maduro. They've been gradually killing business with a tsunami of regulations, price controls, and government takeovers, which has eliminated the private production of many goods and services.
The government controls all US dollars. You can't get them in a black market and people who sell them, but from the government you are not getting shit, okay?
Fed up, especially over moves like jailing the leader of the opposition, Venezuelans showed their displeasure at the ballot box, and earlier this year, Maduro's United Socialist Party lost control of the legislature in a landslide. But he packed the courts with judges who so far have defeated lawmakers' efforts to remove him from office. Maduro's also following the dictator playbook by declaring a state of emergency and revving up the military that will be his last line of defense if large numbers of Venezuelans take to the streets in revolt.
The problem is, see, the oil price declined. Well, guess what? Oil prices declined all over the world. Not all the world is turning into Venezuela.
Exactly.
Oil prices are declining in Alberta, but people in Alberta aren't selling their children for food.
Exactly. And
So,
funny thing,
go ahead.
when in 2008, when the oil prices were $100 a pop, I didn't see Venezuela flowing or just glowing with riches. No.
Yeah, well, this has been going on for a long time, as you say, Kennedy. I mean, this really started back in the late 1990s when Chavez first came to power, and he started with all these socialist policies: redistribution of wealth, elimination of property rights, tariffs, taxes, giveaways, intervention in the economy. And of course, it was all done under the aegis of for the greater good, for the betterment of Venezuela. And you look at the result now. So where are all the liberals? Where are the Danny Glovers and the Sean Penns who heralded the socialist utopia of Venezuela? This is a country that is literally imploding from the outside in, and the quality of life, I don't think, could get any worse. And this, of course, is always the extent of what happens with socialism. Anytime it's been tried to the extent it's been tried, you've seen some terrible, drastic situations like you're seeing right now.
One of my uncles was a civilian officer, and he told me when like a year after he was working with them, he told me, Gabriel, be careful with what you post. And I was like, oh, he's just giving me the top-down talk about I shouldn't post private stuff on the internet. And then he told me, Gabriel, they took down a house with 2 kids of 16 years old, and they put him in jail because they said they wanted to take down the government. And I didn't believe him at first. I thought he was batshit. But then I saw the kids, and he showed me the pictures, and I was like, oh shit, it's for real.
And so what they have done...
Chavez was elected.
Yes, he was elected, Evo Morales was elected, Daniel Ortega, everyone that is now part of the socialism of the 21st century agenda was democratically elected, not through violence, but through cultural manipulation of the language, of the media, of the arts. We are going to implement the ideas that socialism is good, where people think that they want this kind of society. Because it's good, it's going to be better for everyone, and the leader, this is the other idea, the leader is synonym of the will of the people. The leader knows better than any individual how is everyone supposed to lead their lives.
And the little
even the farmers don't have food.
No, even the farmers don't have food. And the little farmers that have food, they sell it as animal food, like cat and dog food, because it's more worth.
Socialism is not just causing a country to collapse inward on itself in South America. It's now imposing a burden on nations next door. The rapid collapse of the national economy in Venezuela remains one of the most vivid images of the failures and shortcomings of a socialist government. And now hospitals and emergency rooms next door in Brazil are feeling the pain. Healthcare facilities in Brazil are taking in record numbers of Venezuelans seeking urgent care. Some of them victims of violence on the streets. The Washington Post detailed the desperate situation just months after reports of a shortage of food and starving residents often taking drastic measures to feed their families.
Well, in Venezuela, her mom would have died, because that's what happens with people with cancer here. They just die. There's no way of...
And horribly painfully, right?
Yes, because there's no way to get
or even painkillers.
No, nothing. You can... I mean, yes, you might be lucky and find an aspirin for your headache, but that's it. That's about it. I had diarrhea for like 2 months. I lost like 10 kilos because I couldn't find this specific pill that the doctor gave me. my friend got in a bike accident like 3 months ago. He went to a free healthcare like central thingy where there are a lot of Cubans there, and they told him, "Oh no, you're fine." They didn't even do a scan on him. No, he thought, "Oh well, Superman, Cuban Superman just saw my arm and told me I was fine."
X-ray vision. Right.
Yeah. So he went 2 days after to a private clinic, and they did X-ray him, and he had a broken arm. And the doctor told him, "If you have gotten here about 8 hours later, we would have to cut your arm." And
They'd have to do what?
they would have had to cut his arm.
Oh, amputate his arm completely.
Yes, because
Jesus.
the the bone was broken and it got infected.